Welcome to the third training module. In the last module, you learned about education for sustainable development, how education can help us overcome many of the challenges lying ahead, create a global movement of citizens that are dedicated to personal, professional, and community actions for the SDGs. But we also made a case for why schools and teachers should teach the SDGs to students and children. We said that firstly, it's schools and teachers' responsibility and opportunity to save the future. Secondly, we said that teaching the SDGs works, but it also helps with other learning outcomes. And finally, we showed that lots of schools and educators are taking leadership and engaging with the SDGs in other parts of the world. And this should show the level of interest. Sounds like we have it all figured out, right? You're probably thinking, wow, education for sustainable development is a great concept. So what are we waiting for? Well, actually, we have a serious dilemma, or three serious dilemmas. Here's our first dilemma. Most of the schools in the world don't know about education for sustainable development, so ESD, or the SDGs. How can these schools or teachers teach the SDGs when they don't even know about it? On to our second dilemma. Let's imagine most schools know about ESD or SDGs, but does that not mean they care or see the relevance? Just because they know it exists does not mean that they will actually care about them. Which brings us to our third dilemma. Even if a school or teacher knows and cares about the SDGs, does not mean that they want to act on it. Even if they want to act on it, they're not really sure what to do. Imagine it through the eyes of an average teacher. Let's call this teacher, as an example, Tom. So Tom is a teacher in a primary school in Australia. He's underpaid, overworked, and his yearly teaching curriculum is already packed with lessons. He barely has time to dedicate to his current classes. Why would Tom go out of his way to add more stuff to his curriculum, especially when he himself as a teacher did not learn about sustainable development in his teacher training? How can he teach something he does not even have training in? And even if he went online to learn about it, he would need to translate that content for a student audience. And that takes a lot of time. He has to look through hundreds of websites, find the best material, localize it, take time to build a lesson plan. So even if Tom really cares about ESD and SDGs and wants to do something about it, there are barriers that will make him much less likely to actually teach the SDGs in his class. Now, what can we do to help overcome these three dilemmas? So dilemma one, we need to find a way to inform most teachers about the SDGs. That's how we overcome it. Dilemma two, we need to find the right arguments to make the teachers and schools care about the SDGs and actually find them relevant and excited. Dilemma three, we need to make it easy for the teachers to learn about the SDGs themselves, but also to teach the goals to their students. Well, this is what the Global School Program does. This is where we come in. Let's start by dilemma three. Global Schools solves this problem by developing online training courses for teachers so teachers can quickly learn about the SDGs. We develop lesson plans for all grades and subjects. So no matter which grade teacher or which subject the teacher is teaching in, the SDGs nicely get created and they're ready to go in lesson plans. And they're not teaching it just once, but they can teach it at least 6 times throughout the year in any subject or any grade. We've also curated a series of online games, activities, videos, books, and comics, which teachers can give to their students so they have even more to do and even more to learn more content to learn when it comes to sustainable development. We're also developing a step-by-step toolkit for schools to integrate the SDGs not into just teaching, but also school activities, school operations, grounds, community activities, and much more. But here's what really makes us overcome dilemma three. Firstly, all this content that we have curated is in one place, so it's easy to find. Secondly, all this content is free to access. And thirdly, we're making this content available in multiple languages. We can't cater to every language, but as we go forward, we'll be creating more and more content in different languages. So if really Tom wants to teach the SDGs to his students, he can go to the globalschools.program.org, and with 2 clicks, he can find the lesson plans for his grade and his subject. And he can simply look over it, study it for a bit, and then teach it the next day to his class. Simple as that. Key to behavior change is to make it easy and simple, and that's what the Global Schools program is going to do. But what about dilemma 2? How does Global Schools convince teachers and schools that they should care? Well, we've done some research to show that teaching the SDGs works, and it would be beneficial for the education of the students, the work of teachers, and most importantly, for the future of their own community, but also the planet. So if we make those arguments and show that evidence, it's more likely that teachers or schools will care about the agenda. Which brings us to our very first dilemma. How do we inform the teachers and schools about the SDGs so that they can then go and care about them, but also go and access the materials to be able to teach? Well, this is really the mission of you, the mission of advocates, to speak to as many schools and as many teachers as possible and to explain to them what the SDGs are, to convince them to care about the SDGs using the arguments that I mentioned previously, including the research and the study from PwC, and finally ask the schools to join the Global Schools program so they can access short online courses for teachers, ready-made lesson plans for every grade and subject, fun resources for children such as games, comics, books, videos, activities, and finally to be part of a global network of other schools and teachers where they can talk to like-minded educators, make friends, create a community, and learn from one another. So as you can see, advocates are critical to this approach. Advocates are critical for getting teachers and schools to engage with the SDGs, and therefore critical for starting the movement for sustainable development. And this is really Global Schools in a nutshell. We develop and curate materials, make it simple and accessible, then we work with local leaders and advocates to bring these materials and content to schools and teachers around the world so they can use it to build a global movement for sustainable development. So this is the end of Module 3. I hope I was able to give you a good understanding of what the Global Schools is, how it came about, and what it's trying to achieve, because this is going to be critical in your journey going forward. See you in the final module.